You don't find confidence before you do the thing. You find confidence by doing the thing. So if you're sitting and you're waiting to get the confidence in order to take the action, you're going to be waiting forever. But if you just go, okay, I'm going to do it, and it's going to be uncomfortable, and I might make some mistakes along the way, but I'm going to do it anyway, on the other side of taking that action is where confidence is.
Absolutely. Well, hi there, and welcome to Side Hustle Hero, the show that is laser focused to inspire you to take action to start or to scale your side hustle income streams. I'm your host, Joan, author of The Way Success Works. I love that reminder from today's guest, Nicki Krawczyk. You find confidence by doing the thing. Too often, we're our own worst enemy. We hold ourselves back. That's merely one of the gems that Nicki shares. She's been a copywriter for more than 20 years, and that's the world we're exploring today. She's a fountain of knowledge because through her company, Filthy Rich Writer, she's been teaching people for over a decade now how to get into the business. And today she reveals how long it takes before you should expect those $2,000 months, typical starting rates, often overlooked elements that you need to factor in when quoting a client, or you'll be shortchanging yourself, essential steps you need to take before reaching out to prospective clients, and oh, so much more. And by the way, if you're enjoying what you're hearing in this podcast and you'd like to buy me a coffee, it's a fun way to show your support. It really is a thing. Just go to sidehustlehero.com/support. A large soy latte would come in really handy right now. Thank you from the bottom of my coffee cup. Now here is my conversation with a hero sharing her tips and insights on the copywriting world, Nicki Krawczyk. Well, welcome, Nicki.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, first up, tell us, what does a copywriter actually do?
Great question. And I think the biggest misconception is people think, wait, copywriter, like copy? I had a friend who asked me, do you put the little circle around the R afterwards? No. That's copy RI. This is copy WRITE. So copywriting is really just, it's marketing and advertising writing. And people think, oh, okay. It's the emails that companies send. It's the websites that companies send. It's billboards. It's the descriptions on the back of books. It's the words on packaging. It is everywhere. I guarantee that right now you are within an arm span of probably at least a dozen different examples of copy. So There's a lot of work to be done.
I always thought of it like websites and landing pages, but the way you just described it, it's the words on a product that I'm looking at right now. It's basically the written word everywhere.
Exactly. If it is, there's a slight difference between copy and content. Content, we won't go too far down that, but content is writing that's designed to educate, to entertain, or to inspire. So that's usually blog posts, that kind of thing. And certainly copywriters can write that in addition. But content is, it's quite frankly, it's a little bit easier to do. And so it's a little bit easier to get into it. And that tends to be a little bit more of a churn and burn industry.
Okay.
But when it comes to copywriting, which is more strategic, generally, both creative and strategic, which is part of what makes it so much fun. But it's usually designed to get people to take action in some way. To your point, if it's a landing page, getting people to maybe give you their email address to get a freebie, or if it's packaging, it could be to get someone to make that purchase, or to get someone to do something, sometimes to change their minds about something. So generally, with some exceptions we don't need to get into, but generally it gets people to take action, which is why it's so valuable to companies and why companies will pay so well for good copy.
Yes, invaluable.
Absolutely.
And from what you described, then the market's huge. Like so many different avenues a person can go through.
Massive. Every once in a while, we'll get someone commenting on our Facebook ads or our Instagram ads saying, but isn't the market going to be flooded? And I just want to be like, oh, you have no idea. You have no idea. There are, out of curiosity, my team and I kind of tried to do an estimate of how many companies there are, just even in the United States alone. Millions of companies. There's something along the lines of like 500,000 new companies starting up every day. And is every one of them going to hire a copywriter? No. Should they all?
Yeah.
Absolutely, because messaging is the most important part of a business. But,
Right.
a copywriter really only needs 5 or 6 clients a month to be full time.
Wow.
And so if you wanna be part-time, if you want it to be a side hustle, you could have 1 or 2 clients. So it's the 1 or 2 clients out of the millions, and that's in the United States alone. I certainly have worked with clients overseas. The it is a massive, massive opportunity.
Well, how did you get
Yeah.
involved in the industry, Nikki?
So I've been a copywriter for more than 20 years. The really way that I got into it was way back in high school, a billion years ago. My dad was a marketing director at the time, and he used to bring home extra work for me to do, and I would do the writing for him, and he would give me feedback. And then I went
And
to
and
school
and pay, I
for
hope.
but yes, I'd pay and
Yeah.
pay. Yes. I mean, I don't remember. No.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Dad was very fair. But then I went to school and went to school for public relations. Copywriting was kind of out of my head, and I did
Mhm.
some events management for a health club and stuff. And the whole time I was thinking, I don't like this. I want to be
Mm.
doing something different. I want to be doing something that feels fulfilling. And the thing is that people who have loved to write, so many of us will say the same thing, that we love to write and we have that talent, and everyone says to us, you can't make any money as a writer. Like, oh, that's
Mm.
really great, but what are you going to do for a
That's
living?
really cute. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, like, "Oh, that's adorable, and how are you gonna pay the bills?" And the funny thing is, even though I was, aware of copywriting, I didn't I didn't have it in my head as I was going, "I don't wanna be doing events anymore, I don't wanna be." And so I was kind of my early 20s trying to decide what it was that I wanted to do next, and my mom actually got me a book. And, and this was before Amazon, so she went to actually go to the
Yeah.
store, put it in the mail to me because that's what moms do. And it was like the six-figure writer or something, and it was actually a very silly book. It was like, "You need a fax machine, and you need," all that kind of stuff. But what
Yeah.
it did was reminded me that copywriting was something that I had done and something that I could do. So
Wow.
I leapt in, started taking clients, certainly made mistakes left and right,
Sure.
which is what I help people avoid nowadays. But yeah, it's been so much fun. I've worked with every size company from solopreneurs up to many multi-billion-dollar companies and every size business in between.
Wow. And it all started, well, a pivotal point anyway is when mom decided to pick up that book
Mhm.
and send it to you.
Yeah, both of them really, right?
Well, what are some typical gigs you would get as a copywriter?
In the early days, in the very early days when I was just getting started before I didn't have anything in my portfolio, I would
Yeah.
do a lot of product descriptions. One of the first big jobs I got was for Marshalls and TJ Maxx at their first foray into online selling. They actually ended up taking those sites down and then relaunched them, but did product descriptions for that company before then I started doing they liked what I did, so they kept me on to do direct mail and then websites and emails and all of that kind of thing. But I think, the one of the easiest things to get into is emails and is websites, and because every company constantly needs more emails. We were talking to a copywriter on our team who's freelance with us and has other clients, and she she goes out and she pitches writing show notes for podcasts like
Oh,
this. And so
wow.
she writes our show notes and then also writes other things for us. But
Yes.
there's all kinds of work that people can do.
So in the case of the stores that you were working with, they would basically show you the product and it might be, I don't know, a black sweater, and you make it sound enticing. Is that kind of the
Yes.
idea behind it?
Yes,
Right,
exactly.
exactly.
And we wouldn't and I think it's actually rare that people get to actually see it in person,
Mhm.
but you get the
Yeah.
picture, you get the description, and yeah. And I actually did it years later for Hasbro as well, which was a lot of fun. I knew more about, like, G.I. Joe and My Little Pony than I would have ever thought I would know as an adult. But, yeah, there's all kinds of fun stuff. Like, I've written the back cover copy for some Harlequin romance novels.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so if anybody out there has ever read, Firefighter's Secret Baby or Quarterback Daddy, just turn
Whoa.
that book over, and the back cover copy is all me.
That's
Yes,
Nikki's work. Very
that's
nice.
me.
Well, you mentioned one possible gig being a website. So
Mhm.
I'm going to assume then there's the person that does the whole back end of the website.
Yes.
There's probably a branding person involved
Mhm. Mhm.
that describes the feel of what the website's going to look like.
Mhm.
and then the copywriter would go to work on the actual wording.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
The copywriters really do just the writing
Yeah.
and the strategizing too, or at least helping the client with the strategizing. But every project is going to start out with a creative brief where it gets every literally on the same page of okay, what are we trying to do with this project? What are the goals? Who are we talking to? What do we want them to do? What are elements that we need to include? And that everyone who works on the project should have that information. To your point, the developer, the designer, the copywriter, well, all just the understanding of what the project has to entail. And then the copywriter can go back and start working on that. If they're having the opportunity to directly collaborate with the designer, those two can work together a bit and then deliver your copy doc to get feedback from the client. I think the important thing for people to know about copywriting
Okay.
is that it's collaborative. So it's
You're right.
you'll put your best foot forward certainly, but there are going to be things in your client's mind that they're not even going to know to tell you and you're not going to know to ask. But the
Yes.
great thing is you'll give them your best foot forward and they'll have questions or they'll have suggestions or like, "Oh, could we add this in instead?" or "Ooh, we've noticed that our audience really responds to this." And so you'll work back and forth just a little bit until you
Yes.
get to the place where the client is delighted with the work that you've done.
Well, I was going to ask you to walk us through that process of what's involved. So the person receives that gig to write
Mhm,
the copy, say for a website.
mhm,
And so
mhm.
that could be a solo entrepreneur that they're dealing with, in which
Absolutely.
case that person is the entrepreneur wearing all those hats that we just described,
Mhm,
all the way through to something that you described where there's a whole team looking
mhm.
the developer and the brander and that sort of thing. And so I guess that
Exactly.
first step is that meeting to find out really what's involved and
Mhm,
get a
mhm.
feel for the length of the project.
Yep, exactly. And the clearer you are at the outset, the more that everybody is on the same page and understands the important points about the project, the smoother the project will go.
Mm,
Sometimes we'll hear people say, "Well, I had so many rounds of revisions with the client." That always, unless they're almost or maybe 99.9% of the time, means that the problem started at the beginning of the
yes.
project, which is one of the reasons why we teach our students to have a really, really solid kickoff for the project to make sure that the rest of the project is as smooth as possible.
To
Because the end
ask all those
result
questions.
exactly, because
Yeah.
the end result is you want a client who's absolutely delighted with the work that you've done. And you the cool thing about being a copywriter too is you get to help these businesses grow.
Yes.
If you put together something really fantastic that works for that business, you are supporting that business in whatever they do in the world, and then potentially supporting whoever purchases that or whoever their clients are. So it really has a fantastic ripple effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would imagine too that going through those questions with the client, it's going to trigger some required thinking on the client's mind that they didn't even think of.
Yeah, Joan, that's really astute because I think one of the most underrated, maybe not even underrated, but little
Overlooked?
understood, overlooked.
Overlooked. Okay.
Thank you. Is the role of the copywriter as helping to encourage the client to think about the project in a different way, to
Mhm.
approach it in a different way, to
Yep.
to your point, to ask questions that they maybe have not even thought to ask themselves. And that can be true of solopreneurs. It can be true of again, multi-billion
Yep.
dollar companies, exactly, big corporations, because everybody's in their silo and they're just working through. But so we can come in and which is part of what makes copywriters so valuable. And we can talk about AI in a bit because I know everyone's like, beep,
Yep.
copywriters are going to be replaced by AI. But part of what makes copywriters so valuable is that we come in and we partner with our clients and we
Mhm.
ask these questions and we help them strategize. A good copywriter is not just going to take a project and write it and send it back. It's a good copywriter should come in and be a true partner.
Mhm. Yeah, that's part of the team there, and then
Yeah.
understanding the company, et cetera,
Mhm.
and do their homework ahead of time so they
Mhm.
understand a little bit or as the best of their ability, the client,
Yeah.
except if it's a startup, but then that's a whole other, um,
Then you're kind of
investigative
discovering it with
set.
the client.
That's right,
Exactly.
yeah, and helping them shape it with
Exactly.
which could be really exciting as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh,
So how would a person go about structuring then pricing something like that? Because you've got to build in a certain amount of revisions and the
mhm,
timeline, and how does all that
mhm.
work?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are two different ways that you can price. You can really price a project by the hour, or you can price a project by the project, really.
Okay.
And generally, if you are contracting with a company, if they're saying, all right, you're going to be here for 20, or you're going to work with us for 20 hours a week, or, or on retainer or something like that, you'll be thinking hourly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, usually it's going to work out best to be project. And so one of the things that we teach in our program is first of all, we give people the opportunity to practice writing different types of copy and get
Yes.
feedback and different types to hone their skills in advance. Also, when you're practicing it, you could start to get a sense for how long things take you. Because
Hmm.
as you start to talk with clients, you say, all right, they're looking at me, all right, they want me to write this web page when I did this practice work. So let's estimate this is going to take me X number of hours. And okay, and to your point, we need to factor in some revision times. We'll factor in 2 rounds of revisions. That's pretty safe. We'll factor in client meetings. We'll factor in that initial input call. We'll factor in time for emails. I think that's something that a lot of people miss. And if you're
Yes.
sending, then all of a sudden you're going, wait a minute. I spent an hour on these emails, and I
Yes.
mean, emails to your client, to and from
Mhm.
your client.
Yeah.
So that's something that you want to factor in as well. And you really also should factor in, doesn't usually end up being a lot of time, but the time that it will take you at the end of the project to put together your invoice. All of that should be included in your project price. And
Right.
so you're going to base that on the amount of time that you were going to spend doing that, and that amount of time you will have taken the time to figure out how much you want to work, how much you want your hourly number to be. That's where you'll
Right.
start.
Right.
As you get more and more advanced, you may start increasing your rates and adjusting the time it will take you to do things, but that's a good place to start.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. And in a typical sales situation,
Mhm.
the person has to go in and do a certain amount of research for the company and their needs, present basically a sales presentation, and they may or may not get the gig. I would imagine that same process happens with copywriting. So there's a certain amount that they're going to have to invest and then
Yeah.
do their pitch.
It's similar. I would
Okay.
say that yes, you should get an understanding of the company. When we talk about pitching in our company, we talk about doing outreach, but the way that we teach it is very different from the
Okay.
pitches that most people get in their inbox. I'm sure, Joan, you get a ton of the same cruddy pitches that I do.
Yeah.
The pitches that we teach our students to do are very value based. They take out any sales at all, and more than anything else, they are about providing value to the potential client. And so, first of all, there's a little bit of research involved in that to begin with. You need to understand the company. You need to understand what ideas might work for that
And
company.
I was going to ask you an example of what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, we do a live student only event in January. We're in the middle of it right now. We were just talking about this step. But so here's an example.
Yeah.
Let's say you opt in for a company's website, or you opt in for a company's newsletter, their email, whatever. Most websites, when you opt in, you give the email address, you'll click send me the email or whatever, and it will take you to a page that's like, great, you're on the list. Check your email, which is
Yeah.
such a massive, massive wasted opportunity, because this is someone who just registered that they're very interested. I want to hear more. So that page is a perfect page to give them more information about the company, more information about the services or the product, or that
Right.
anything that someone at that stage, and that can take a little bit of thinking. Where are they in the customer journey? What would they both most want or need to know most? But that is the kind of idea that you could pitch to a company. It's
Mm,
it's all about providing value first, stripping out any sales at all.
right.
And obviously there are plenty more nuances to that,
Yes.
but
Yes.
it's first and foremost thinking about being helpful, which is why our students get a lot of potential clients saying, thank you for
Yes.
sending pitches, instead of, don't ever contact me again. Please leave me
Right.
alone.
So then as a potential client, I get a pitch or an email like that, and I'm
Mhm,
thinking, oh, I never really thought of it that way. Out of all the people that have
mhm.
pitched me, this is the person that stands out as already adding value for me.
Exactly, exactly. You're
Yeah.
already adding value. You're already acting like a partner. You're
Yeah.
already putting the company's needs in the forefront. Yeah, it sets you apart from all of the rest of the competition. On top of the fact that most people aren't even pitching to begin with, which is it's such a missed opportunity. And I'm sure you hear this a lot as well. People think, "Well, I'm just going to go on Upwork." and Upwork is going to get me, it's going to be all the work. The problem with that is, and certainly it can be something you can do.
Yes.
However, when you're going to Upwork, you're still putting the control in somebody else's hands. You're
Hmm.
going to the end, you're hoping that there's going to be a project there waiting for you. And then you're competing with other people. And by virtue of the way the site works, you have to decrease your rate in order to be competitive.
Yes.
So you're giving up all of that control. And when we start a side hustle, we start it to have more control over our
Yeah.
income and what we do and all that kind of thing. So instead of being on a site like Upwork or a job bidding site and giving up that control and having to compete where it's you and any number of other copywriters, the system that we teach puts you back in control, and it's one you and any number of opportunities.
Hmm. So, where are examples of where your newer students are finding clients? I would imagine one of them is prospecting through LinkedIn or.
Our students find clients all over.
Okay.
One of the favorite things that we go down the road of is we talk about how to start finding clients.
Hmm.
And I go in and I say, look, it's not often that I'm going to tell you to do this, but I want you to go down a rabbit hole. Go wild. Don't be focused. Go crazy. Start looking around because there are clients everywhere. Now, yes, certainly clients can work with their local yoga studio. They can work with people that they've worked with in the past, but truly it can be, open up Instagram. Instagram, every third post is going to show you someone who is advertising. And guess what? If someone is advertising, they are interested in growing their business and they're willing to invest in growing their business. And for every, just looking around my desk, I have mugs, I have lip stuff, I have, and all of these companies have competitors, direct competitors.
Yes.
All of these companies have indirect competitors. All of those companies have competitors and direct and indirect competitors. And all of it, for every, all right, this water bottle is blank, but let's say it weren't.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
the people who manufacture the water bottle. There's the people, if there were an image on it, there's the people who stamp it on the water bottle. There's the company who distributes the water bottle. And I know that as I'm saying, distribution of a water bottle, you would be surprised that the company, like, oh, I'm going to want to work for a company. Blah, blah, blah. Companies can be so fascinating when you dig into them and you learn
Yes.
about them. The
Hmm.
example I always give is I did some work years ago for a company that sold. They weren't industrial tractors, but they were bigger than your average ride-on mower, right? They were
Okay.
kind of in between. And their niche market was like airline executives in Washington who had these vast pieces of land, and on the weekends, they wanted to feel like I don't wanna say gentlemen because I'm sure there were plenty of female executives too, but just for the sake of brevity, it was like they wanted to feel like gentlemen farmers on the
Yes.
weekend. And
Yes.
that's who this audience was. And I had the opportunity, like, to dig into their mindset and write copy that made them extra excited about this brand. So even if you think, well, I don't wanna write a track, when you dig into these things, it can become fascinating. It's so much fun to do this work.
I just had it when you said that. I had a flash to two partners that I had in the flower business, predominantly wholesale. We did anyway. The one guy, John, that was his kind of chill time. He had that property that you just described, and he would get on
Yes.
that tractor with his scotch and water, and he'd drive
Yes,
around the property, and that was his think time and creative, and that's
exactly,
hilarious.
exactly. Those were the clients, yes, and I had the fun job of digging into his head and figuring out, "All right, how do I make him interested in this one versus this one?" And so much fun, so much fun.
And I guess you would get an inkling of that after going down that rabbit hole as you described and seeing who they're trying to pitch to.
Mhm, exactly, and the
Yeah, okay.
client is going to the vast, vast majority of clients are gonna have a good idea of who their clients are. Now,
Mhm. Yes.
you gonna wanna ask questions to dig into it a little bit. Well, is this something that they would do, or are they more this, or are they more this? And take some time to think it through. Certainly, this is back to the more thinking in you do at the beginning, the easier the project is going to be, and certainly
Right.
never be afraid to ask a client questions. But most clients are going to have a really solid idea of who their target audience is. But quite frankly, that can be a red flag. If you talk to a client and they say, "Our target audience is everyone,"
Ah,
you
yes.
might not wanna work with that client. And as you know, in when you're freelancing, when you're doing a side hustle, you don't have to work with every client. There are
No.
plenty, more than enough clients for all of us and then some in the world. But or to your point, like a startup might need a little bit more help figuring out who that is. But that's
Yeah.
also something you build into your project price, right? They pay you to do it.
Right. And there could be a long-term opportunity
Yeah,
there as well. You mentioned as
exactly.
an example of when you let your students loose and just go down any rabbit hole and look for opportunities, you mentioned Instagram and the
Mhm.
posts. So if they did come across one that it's, okay, this person could seriously use my help, would you recommend that they reach out to that person with a sample copy?
They could, but they don't even necessarily have to.
Okay.
They could just do the research to find out who to reach out to, and
Ah,
really just send them that initial pitch with the idea.
okay.
Everybody that wants to be a copywriter, that wants to be a paid copywriter, which if you're gonna write copy, get paid for it.
That's right. Yeah.
Everybody that wants to be a copywriter needs to have their portfolio site. That's one of the things that we work on with our students. There are really three phases, right, to get to the point where you're ready to write copy for clients. Number one, you need to get training. Copywriting is totally different from any other kind of writing. It would be, quite frankly, it would be disingenuous. It would be immoral to try to get paid to write copy if you haven't learned how to do it. So you need to get training. Then you need to get experience. You need to get practice, and you need to get feedback on that practice, and you need to build up your skills. Then you need to build your website, which, thank goodness, and you and I have been in business for a while, we know it is easier now to build a
Oh
website
gosh.
than
Yeah.
ever before.
Yes.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
But you need to build up your website, and you need to have samples on your website, because people want to. It's one thing to say, I'm a great copywriter, but you need to also be able to show them
Of
that you're
course.
able to do that.
Yeah.
One of the cool things about copywriting is that it's entirely merit based. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, what your gender is, what you look like, where you live. If you can write great copy, people will hire you for it. So
Hmm.
once all of that is set aside, then you're ready to start doing your outreach. And it could be, like we were saying, yes, Instagram is one place to find people, but walking down the street in your town, then in
Yeah.
your city, then in your, it really, we're so used to looking at the world through a keyhole, and
Yes.
I can, off the top of my head, I can only think of 5 companies, or there must only be 5 companies. The opportunity is immense. And you talked about, well, I see this company needs my help. But here's the thing. Even the companies that look like they've got it all together, they still need your help, right? I think sometimes we think, well, how am I going to pitch this company if they've got a company can have their website done, they can have their aim, but they're still working on projects behind the scenes. And you're not going to know about those projects in advance. Sometimes our students will say, well, I don't want to pitch a company if they don't need me. But you're not psychic. You're not going to know if they need you. You're not going to know about a project they're working on, because that's not going to
Right.
be public.
Yes.
But they may need your services, and there's no downside. There's no downside to pitching them. So we talk
Yes.
a lot about not making assumptions and trying to second guess when's the best time to pitch, or what's the best company to pitch. And every one of them, everyone, now, when's the best time to pitch? Now. Don't wait. Right now. Do
When's
it
the best time to
now.
start your side hustle? Now.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. First answer, maybe last week, but best answer right now. Yes. Yeah.
Mhm. This would give a person the opportunity to travel down the road of what they're really interested in too. So, like, for example, I am a huge horse lover. If I
Oh,
got involved in copywriting, I could take a look at that, just the whole equine industry,
mhm.
say, and take a look at what opportunities are there, or someone that's
Yes.
a golfer or into, I don't know, history or whatever it is,
Yeah. Yeah,
right? Match
absolutely.
that up.
Absolutely. But the thing I would say, though, is don't limit yourself. I think
Yeah.
sometimes people think, well, I'm going to get it and I have to choose a niche right away. And certainly you can definitely pursue interest. Yes. But don't think that you have to choose a niche, because you
Mhm.
absolutely don't. First of all, you're brand new to it. How could you possibly know what you're going to want to do and what industries you're going to want to work in?
Yeah.
The best thing to do, especially as you're getting started, is to build your depth and breadth of experience so that you
Yeah.
can work with any type of client, which is also going to make you a lot of money when you can work with any type of client, and you can demonstrate that you can write a lot of different kinds of projects in a lot of different kinds of brand voices, that you
Right.
can hit the ground running, whether the brand voice is kind of silly and goofy, or whether the brand voice is very very serious and grown up, or any of those kinds of things.
Which is
But
probably
yes,
part of your recommendation when your students are building their website, is to have that variety.
absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So talk to us about the skill set. Who makes the best copywriters?
Great
What do
question.
they
So
need? Yeah.
the first thing, you should have a natural affinity for writing, right?
Mhm.
It should be something you like to do. If your friends are always saying, "Oh my gosh, you're such a good writer," or if your friends are saying, "Hey, can you take a look at my cover letter?" or "Hey, can you look at this email before I
Yeah.
send it to my boss?" There's a good chance that you would be a good writer. Also, if you have internalized that writers don't make any money, if you heard that and took that to heart, you're probably right for this. It's a wonderful experience to be like, "I'm a writer and I make an excellent living at it." I think that's the first one. Number 2 is you have to be willing to learn, and you have to be willing to take action. I think as adults, it's not often we actually do something new and have to learn something
Yes.
new. So if you're willing to dig into it and practice and make some mistakes and incorporate some feedback and build your skills,
Hmm.
that's the next thing. And then I think really beyond that, it's willingness to get out of your comfort zone. Because anything, and I'm sure you talk about this a lot as well, is that it's anything that matters in life is outside of our comfort zone,
Yes.
right? The next opportunity, the next job, the next relationships, getting married, raising children, finding a career that we love, traveling to a new country, all that stuff is outside of our comfort zone. So we
Yes.
have to be willing to
Mm.
get a little bit uncomfortable so that then our comfort zones can grow. And it's, oh, I haven't written for a client yet. Okay, well then you do write for a client, and then your comfort zone grows. And I've had my first $1,000 month. Okay, great. Now let's get you your first 3,000, and your first 5,000, and your first $10,000 month. And
Yeah.
it grows. But I'm not going to lie to anybody. It's uncomfortable in that in between time when it's, oh,
Oh,
and we
yeah.
have so many resources in our program about, how to overcome that resistance, but you have to be willing to do it.
Absolutely. To step
It's
into what I call
exactly.
out of the comfort zone into the panic zone
Yes.
and be willing to
Yes.
stay there long enough until over time, what was the panic zone becomes the new comfort zone. So now
Yes.
your comfort zone is expanded. And the beauty of it, Nikki, and I know you know this, it never really shrinks back. It just
Mm-mm.
keeps
Mm-mm.
expanding and that goes on
Mm-mm.
forever. There will
Yeah,
always be that outside of our comfort zone area.
exactly. Yes, I could not agree more. Could not, and the panic doesn't last forever, right? I
No,
think
no.
that's something we encounter with our students is that feeling of like, but if I get into that panic zone, I'm going to feel no, you're
No.
going to feel it for a little while, and then you're going to keep going and move through it. It won't last forever. But I think it's that fear of
Yeah.
experiencing it. That's
Yes.
what keeps it. Like if you're
Yes.
spending one of the things that we say a lot is you don't find confidence before you do the thing, you find confidence by doing the thing.
Hmm.
So if you're sitting and you're waiting to get the confidence in order to take the action, you're going to be waiting forever. But if you just go, okay, I'm going to do it and it's going to be uncomfortable and I might make some mistakes along the way, but I'm going to do it anyway. On the other side of taking that action is where confidence is.
Absolutely. Earlier on in our conversation, we were talking about that getting together with the client for the first time and talking about
Mhm.
hourly rates. What do you find most of your students starting out with as far as a common hourly rate?
We usually advise that they start somewhere in the 40 to 50 range.
Hmm.
And then as you get more experience, then you can raise your rates. You were 50 with that client, now you're going to be 55 an hour and then maybe then getting to 60. But the cool thing is that I think people think, well, but how much can you make if you want to work? And obviously we're talking about side hustles, but
Yes.
I always think in terms of full time just because the numbers are
Yes.
easier to work with.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to do $50 an hour and you want to do 40 hours a week, even with 2 weeks of vacation, that gets you well above six figures. So when people say, is that really possible to make that much money as a writer? Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to
Yeah.
work less, certainly if you want it to be a side hustle,
Yeah.
yeah. But you can still make a very nice, nice, for lack of a better term, nice chunk of change
That's right.
doing
Yeah.
work that really helps our clients and is really valued by
Hmm. And and again, obviously it's going to vary with the client and the project, but generally, what would be sort of an average length of a project for that person starting out? Would
them.
it be I'm just trying to plug the numbers in my head, like a
Yeah.
10-hour project kind of thing or?
that would really, really value from project to project. Like, for
Yeah.
example, if you're doing product descriptions and you're doing, product descriptions for 5 sweaters, that could be, and it depends on how much information they give you, and
Yes.
that could be set. Or if you're doing an email series and it's 5 emails for a company, and maybe it's even 5, 6, or, for example, I'm sure we've all seen sales pages that are real, real short, and then sales pages that you just keep
Go
scrolling and it's
on
more and more and
forever.
more.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the difference between those can be really huge, but you can have projects that could literally take you, the show notes, for example. The show notes might take you a half hour to listen to the project. Maybe if you have not worked with the client before, maybe a half hour of research to understand that client's voice. Maybe give yourself a half hour to an hour to write the show notes, and then maybe, and this is really just ballpark, truly ballpark, but then
Yes.
maybe a half hour for revisions. So that could be a short project, but then you might have a part like rewriting a website, for example. That could be or a full project, just the rewriting a website and emails to go with it. And maybe there's a sales page, and we see internet entrepreneurs who do launches, that kind of thing. If you did all of those, and then the social posts to go with it and all that kind of stuff, that could be hundreds of hours, of course,
Yeah.
spread out over months likely. But
Right. Yeah.
it's definitely a very a very broad range of possible opportunities. Yeah.
But if someone were looking at putting in something like even 10 hours a week, that could be 400, 500 a week gross.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, it
Mhm.
seems relatively low cost to get started. What are
Mhm.
some fees or expenses that might not be obvious to someone not currently in the business?
Mhm. Training aside, you need to get training, whether it's with us, somebody else, you need to get training.
Okay.
But beyond that, you need to have a website. That's pretty much it. And that website will cost you $15 a month usually to have it hosted somewhere. But you really don't need anything beyond. I mean, yes, okay, you need internet access. If you don't have internet access in your
Sure.
home, you will need internet access. You need something.
Yeah.
Generally, we recommend computer. I've heard of some students using a tablet. It just, frankly, just seems easier to be able to type on a computer.
Yeah.
You need to have access to Zoom so that you can have client calls, or Skype, I guess. But really, that's
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talk a lot about is don't invest in software, don't purchase anything until you're sure it's going to pay for itself and then some. So
Okay.
even in terms of like client tracking, use an Excel doc or use Google Sheets, or
Yes.
sending out your invoices. Send out an email with an attachment that's to a Word doc, or to, or maybe you converted it
PDF or
to a
something. Yeah.
PDF.
Yeah.
Exactly. Clients can pay you through PayPal. Keep it simple. As your business evolves and maybe you have more clients, and you want to keep a track of client projects, there are even plenty of those that are still free. Then you
Yeah.
can start exploring.
Oh, right. Right. Well, your mom sent you that book for how to earn six figures as a
Yes.
copywriter. I've trust
Yes.
you've hit that mark being a copywriter yourself.
The first time I hit, now obviously I'm not a full-time copywriter anymore because we run the businesses. But the first time I hit six figures was in 2008, the year of the Great Recession, and it was after I
Right.
went freelance from I left a full-time job and went freelance, and that was the
Okay.
first time. The crazy thing is that, and I'm sure you know this, I know you know this, freelancing is especially good during recessions or when the economy is bad, because freelancing offers companies more flexibility. If they're trying to figure out where to save money, they're not going to have the money to bring on full-time staff. And
Right.
especially with copywriting, companies become hyper focused on selling, hyper focused on making sure that they're making money so that they can keep the lights
Yeah.
on. And a
Yeah.
big part of that is effective messaging. You can't have a successful business without effective messaging. So it's a good time to be a copywriter at any time, but it turns out it is especially good in times when the economy is weird.
I know this is really going to depend on the person and their skills, their
Mhm.
network, but given the experience you have in the industry, I'm going to ask if
Yep.
someone were to decide, I want to be a copywriter as a side hustle, how long should they give themselves until they start to see somewhat of a consistent income revenue stream? Like how long of a runway to get to that $1,000 a
Absolutely.
month, $2,000 a month, and as part-time as a side hustle.
Yep, absolutely. And most of our students start out part-time. And quite frankly, that's what we recommend
Okay,
because
sure.
it's some people thrive when they're under pressure, but most people don't. Most people shut down. And if you kind of you hold your nose and jump in, that can be a lot of pressure to pay your bills. Maybe eventually you want to be full-time, in which case great. Or maybe you just want to stay part-time. You want to keep it a side hustle.
Yep,
Also excellent. Quite frankly, it's also a great way to just keep yourself fresh. But it will depend on how much time they put into learning and going through the training and practicing their skills because they do have to have written some copy, practice a bit
sure.
before they're ready to take on clients. But we have some students who jump in, who go for it, who go, okay, I'm uncomfortable. I'm going to take the action anyway. We have students that land clients within the first, couple of weeks of learning about because you don't need to know everything.
Right.
You can learn as you go. We always laugh that one of our coaches actually was talking to one of his clients, and the client said, "Oh, do you know how to write video scripts?" And he went, "I do." He said, and then I turned right back around and went to that section of the course where you teach us how to write video scripts, and then because you can dip back into it. We give you lifetime access, so dip back into it when you need to. But so we've had students that land their first clients within a couple of weeks.
Mm,
I would say most students, it takes them a little bit longer, a couple of months. But again, it depends on, some people start and they're ready and raring, and then they step back a little bit, or sometimes life gets in the way and they have to
yes,
step away and they have to come back to it. But it's not even really, yeah, I guess time, how much time you have to do the learning and doing the practicing.
yes.
Uh, But certainly you could start landing clients within the first couple of months. Absolutely. And then from there, it just depends on how big you want to get it and how much you want to earn and how far out you want to book yourself if you have 10 hours a week. Yeah.
And some people might be thinking, well, that's fine, and I love the idea of it, but is there really a future for me if AI can do it?
It's a great question. And I get it. I get the concern. And quite frankly, too, if you were a content writer, we talked about that a little bit earlier, the blog post writers, yeah, I would be concerned. I would be concerned if you were focused on writing blog posts because it is very easy for AI to generate that. A client says, "All right, write a blog post on this," and AI has it done in moments. So content writers should be a little bit concerned. But copy is different. And certainly clients are experimenting with it, but the first thing to know is that Google and search engines are penalizing clients
Yes,
who are using just AI. It
yes.
can see it and it penalizes the clients.
Yep.
So clients want to be working with real people. Are there going to be clients that try to do it on the cheap? Yeah, but there have always been clients that try to do it on the
Yeah,
cheap.
yeah, exactly.
And then number two, you yes, it can produce words that, by the way, are not, there's nothing original about them. It cannot, by the way it works, it cannot come up with anything original. It can only create derivatives of things that it's found out in the world. So it can't be original. It's impossible for it to be so.
Yeah.
But on top of that, it can only produce words. It doesn't do all of the other things that a copywriter does when they work with their clients. It doesn't help them strategize. It doesn't help them dig in to learn more about their audience. It doesn't help them. It doesn't say, "Okay, I know that you said you wanted to start with this project, but you also just said that this was your goal. So I'm wondering if maybe we shouldn't start with this kind of project and then eventually get off." It can't be a partner. And writing
Right,
certainly
yes.
is important for a copywriter, but it's only one part of what we do. There's so much more than that. And AI can't do that. Are some people going to try to do AI instead of hiring people? Yes, of course, because people make bad choices in business all the time. But skilled copywriters are worth it. And
Mhm,
there's the AI cannot replace the things that we do. It's not going to replace copywriters. No.
right. So what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you, Nikki?
Yes, great. So you can find us certainly on Instagram at Filthy Rich Writer, which is the name of our company. I know people are always like, "What? Filthy Rich Writer?" I did
Okay,
it on
I'm gonna ask you
purpose.
about that in a minute, okay?
Yes, I know, really. I didn't say it till, yeah. Yes. But so you can find us there. Also, we have our Build Your Copywriting Business podcast. We have like 160, 70 episodes there. So if I've
Nice.
forgotten to mention something here, It's there or coming. And then also we have a free on-demand video training that people can check out. And you can find that at freecopywritingtraining.com.
What a perfect URL.
Nabbed that one.
You really,
Yes.
eh?
Yes.
Well, we'll definitely have those links in the show notes. You mentioned the name of your company
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
Filthy Rich. Tell us about that and how
Very
you
polarizing.
landed. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some people hate that name. And there have definitely been times we have been in business for 11, 12 years now. We've had more than 11,000 students go through our program.
That was the birth of this program that you just
Mhm.
you described.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. The brand is Filthy Rich Writer, and the program is the Comprehensive Copywriting Academy. We've had more than 11,000 students. I actually should check the number because I think we're getting real close to 12. But in
12,000 students through?
absolutely.
Very nice.
Thank you. And there have definitely been times when I thought, oh, I don't know, should I have named it that? But the thing is that I kind of wanted to raise eyebrows. I wanted people to go, what? Filthy rich writer? What does that even mean? Is that even possible? Because so many of us writers have been told that you can't make money. I wanted people to go, wait, what? What
Yeah.
could that mean? Is that possible? And quite frankly, if it's the kind of person who's going, that's not possible. I don't believe that. I don't want to work with you anyway. Best of luck to you wherever you're going. But I want people to go, oh, interesting. Okay, tell me more. I want the kind of people who are, or I want to work with, and the kinds of people who are going to be successful are the kinds of people who go, interesting. Okay, tell me more about this, and who have an open mind and who are open to what this can be. Because
Yep.
for us, being filthy rich means having a job you love, doing it well, and being paid well to do it. That's
Mhm.
what it is. And I
Yes.
think that if you're not open to that, then it's not a good career for you anyway. But if you
Yeah.
are, if you're willing to look at things slightly differently, if you're willing to set aside this idea of like writers can't make any money, you'll always be poor, if you're willing to set that aside, then this could be an amazing career for you.
Spoken like a truly skilled copywriter.
Thank you.
That sounds like there's so many opportunities there, low cost to get involved. What's the biggest challenge that people have trying to get into the industry?
Honestly, it's what we were saying earlier. It's the being willing to get outside your comfort zone.
Okay.
Because I think people get excited about something. They get motivated, they get started. And I think one of the biggest disservices we've been done, maybe as human beings, but it is believing that we can rely on motivation, right? But motivation by its very nature wanes. It's a chemical state. We're excited at the beginning and then it disappears. And I think that as it disappears and as self-doubt starts to come up, as we start to come up inside come up to the edges of our comfort zone, we
And
start
we're
to
not
go,
getting those results yet.
yep, and not
Not
yet, because
not yet.
certainly nothing
Yep.
happens overnight. Nothing
Yep.
happens immediately. Nothing happens before you take the actions. I think that's when most people start to go, oh, well, maybe I wasn't meant to do this, or I'm not feeling motivated anymore. Maybe I'm not going to do this. The biggest thing that's going to hold us back, I think, in copywriting and probably in most things in life, are all in our own heads. Is letting that fear of getting outside our comfort zones get in the way of taking the actions that we know we need to take and that we know that we
Mhm.
want to take, or
Yeah.
listening to those voices in our heads that go, well, maybe this isn't for you. Maybe well, you're not feeling motivation today, so maybe you shouldn't. It's our brains are not programmed for us to lead big lives. Our brains are programmed to keep us on the sofa eating Cheetos. But that's not where
And
all of
staying
the
safe.
fulfillment is.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's not where the fulfillment is. So you have to be willing to do it anyway.
And that leads into my final question, which is what's your best success tip for someone wanting to start or grow their side hustle?
Yes. Actually, I have two, if you don't mind me.
Please.
But my first one is very practical in terms of you have to put stuff on your schedule. If you want to do something, you have to put it on your schedule. Even if you
Yes.
just put it on your to-do list, it's going to keep getting pushed down to the bottom of your to-do list. It goes to the next day. It goes to the next day. You will never actually get it done. You have to schedule it.
Mhm.
Literally put it on your calendar.
Yes.
And then the second one, this was actually something that has helped me in all areas of my life. And that is to only take advice from people who are successful at what you want to do. Don't take relationship advice from your perpetually single friend.
Yes.
Don't take business building advice from your Uncle Phil, who's never built a business. Don't take freelancing advice from your mom who loves you so much and is so worried about you, but has never been a successful freelancer. Take advice from people who are successful at what you want to do and say, thank you, I hear you, to everybody else, but set it aside.
Great advice. I had a mentor who used to say, don't ask just anyone what they're thinking. He said, chances are that person probably isn't.
I love that. I love that.
Well, thank you so much, Nicki, for sharing your insights into the
Thank
world
you.
of copywriting and how someone could get started. And of course, for being today's side hustle hero.
Oh, thank you, Joan. This was so much fun to chat with you.
I love that Nicki made mention of how our comfort zone holds us back. I devote a whole section on it and how to bust through it in my video masterclass, Turn Your Thoughts into Wanted Things. Imagine for a moment that someone is living a life at, say, a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10. They're doing what they're doing day in and day out, getting the same old results, living in their comfort zone. Then one day, they get inspired. They read a good book or go to a seminar or hear a great podcast episode, and they think, damn it, I could be doing so much more. I don't want to live a level 5 life anymore. I want to live full on at a level 10. 10 being so much better. Better income, better relationships, greater health, happiness, and wealth. So here's a question. Can this person achieve their desired level 10 results by continuing their level 5 actions? No, otherwise their level 10 results would have shown up by now. What they need to do, and what Nicki described, is to step out of their comfort zone into what I call the panic zone. The panic zone, of course, feels very different. Comfort zone is, well, comfortable. But panic zone is, oh my God, this is crazy. It feels scary. There are a lot of unknowns, which is why too often when people attempt to try a new action, they enter that panic zone and it can feel so uncomfortable and they don't understand what's taking place in the mind that they retreat back into the comfort zone and they begin to reason with it and say to themselves, what was I thinking? That was a stupid idea anyway. I don't need those level 10 results. I'm doing just fine at level 5. Thank you very much. Who needs a 6-figure income? It'll just bring me more problems. Can a person move through the panic zone? Absolutely. And if they're willing to give it time, what was a panic zone becomes the new comfort zone. But of course, at the edge of that now expanded comfort zone is what? Yep, the edge of the new panic zone. I was born with introverted tendencies, and I used to be terrified of public speaking. And to get over that, I had to dance in the panic zone for so long and so often, but I'm so glad I did, because it's opened up so many doors and opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise. It's been said that life begins on the other side of your comfort zone, and I've really found that to be true. It takes courage, it takes guts, it takes goals. I hope you have big, beautiful, bold goals that are worthy of you. If you'd like to take a deeper dive in discovering what you're truly capable of and nailing those side hustle goals, I encourage you to check out Turn Your Thoughts into Wanted Things. You'll find the links in the show notes. Well, that's a wrap for today. You'll find the sites that Nicki mentioned and the full show notes at our website, sidehustlehero.com. If you're enjoying what you're seeing in this podcast, I'd be so grateful if you would take a moment and add your comment, share the episode, and please subscribe. It'll let others know that there's valuable content here to help them start or grow their side hustle. Thanks for watching, and hustle on.